but people have daddy issues. If you're looking for books that just bring you joy, this isn't it. I typically only reserve 5 stars for books that just put a smile on my face, but this might be an exception.
So close.
It could change the world.
Hi, welcome to a reading vlog. My name is Steph. This is Coffee Over Apples, and this is a reading vlog for House of Leaves. I don't remember if I necessarily recorded an opening for this video, but if I didn't, I guess you'll be seeing this one. This book sent me through a whirlwind of emotions. Some days I loved it, some days I hated it, and ultimately my feelings are so intense, and this is probably going to be on my mind for years. But anyway, here's a vlog. I've been anticipating this for a long time. It's an anticipated 5-star read, so enjoy.
Stand clear of the closing doors.
Alright, you know, we got so many songs to play for you, so we better get to it, huh?
Okay. 100-page update. Where's there it is. My bookmark. I'm here. I'm 100 pages in, roughly. Just a little bit under 100 pages. I've had to put this down twice. Just because it's a lot. I'm holding a spoon because I am eating a yogurt and reading House of Leaves. I don't even know how to describe this book. It's so good. It's everything I wanted and more. Okay, in the beginning it was very pretentious, right? So we're following a text that was written about a text about a film. So Johnny is a very pretentious, self-sabotaging man, 25 I think, who works at a tattoo shop, and he likes drugs and he likes women and he just doesn't want to know what day it is most of the time, and he ends up getting invited by a friend to a house. And in this house, it was a house of an old man who died. When he goes inside, they find something that contains text. And the text is written by the man who died about the Davidson records, which we don't know if
the records of this film exist or not, because the text is saying that this is a very famous film and it's almost a cult classic. So think like the Blair Witch Project, but people never could decide if it was real or not real. So everyone just settled on it being fake and being a really good mockumentary and breaking it down as a piece of artwork, but never being able to find the people who existed in the movie or having anyone ever step forward for taking credit for this movie. And so he's like, well, this text is saying all of these things, and he's saying that it's not real, but the text seems very real. And he finds people who know the old man, who can kind of like corroborate in some kind of way, but not fully to the existence of this text. But everyone says that this old man was just like a very sweet man, and he was blind. When Johnny first goes into the house where the text is found, there are no light bulbs. The place is completely empty and everything is sealed. The doors, the windows, everything. So that's like the external plot that's happening, right? But inside the Davidson records, we get the story of a family who is living in this house that they just moved in, and strange shit is happening. Okay. It's so good. It's so good. Doors are opening and hallways are being created, but these hallways don't necessarily go anywhere, and they're creepy as fuck. Like, one of the first scenes that we get is called Experiment Number 4, I think it was. And it's basically the father of the family, who is a photographer. He's showing us that he's filming the opening of this door, and that when you look through it, it looks like it's a 10-foot long hallway. But when he comes out of the door and looks out the side window, you can see there's no hallway there. That's where the backyard is. So where is this hallway disappearing into, in like another dimension? His wife is struggling with this because she's like, she wants to get out of there. And he is an artist, and he's like, I gotta do what documentary artists, photojournalists do. I gotta document. But they have little kids, and these doors are popping up out of nowhere. They're just showing up. To the point where friends are coming over and people are leaving and not talking to them again. Like, dude, you have a fucking haunted door that just popped up in your living room that shouldn't be there and leads to what seems like just pitch darkness. We don't want, like, if the friends aren't coming back, Mans needs to get a hint. So it's very scary. Very scary. Things are happening in the dark. Johnny is slowly descending into madness. I don't know. I love the footprint formula, but we will see how much more I have to put this down. Hopefully a lot, because right now this is a really good sign.
Hi, my name is Steph. I'm exhausted. It's like 2 weeks later and I'm still reading this thing, okay? I'm like halfway through it at this point. I have a lot of thoughts. I don't know how to feel about this book. I mean, I like it, right? I got some red tabs in here. These were scenes that I just loved, that creeped me out, were just really cool. This feels like a very pretentious graduate level thesis on liminal space. That feels like the best way to describe it. It is a haunted house story. But it's like moving too slow for me. All right, we got multiple timelines, or because we've got Johnny, who is in the present, who is annotating this book that they found in the house of the last character, old man who died, writing this book about a film. Okay, and it's really gotten to the point where it's like people have gone into the liminal space more times than they should have, to the point where other characters were like, why the fuck are you going in there? Please leave. But people have daddy issues.
people have PTSD, people have serious trauma, and they're like, no, I am man, beat chest, go be amazing for something that no one's gonna know about or care about if you're dead and you can't reclaim your prize for solving this eighth wonder of the world. So I'm gonna go in and solve it, and people die, things happen. I'm not gonna say who, but it's become very clear that the house that is haunted changes specifically based on who it wants to lay claim to. We don't know if there's a monster. There's been 2 hints that there is a monster, because there's this like one scene where this one character kind of blips out on film, and it seems like it's alluded to there being a creature crawling out of the darkness right before the film blips. So we think that there's something there, but there's nothing in any of the rooms to tell us that something's there. Like there's no molding, no windows, door frames. The only time that a door kind of, I'm making toast. That's what that sound was. The only time that a door frame or a door rather pops up is when a character is thinking about how much they need refuge, and then they're able to kind of find it. So the space changes depending on the mental state and wants and wishes of the person that's there. And the 2 times that we had a monster sighting, those 2 individuals were, one was confirmed to have been thinking about monsters, and the other one may well have been, given their situation. So it's like, is there, isn't there, what is manifested? Definitely has a lot to do with the void, and that being one of like my biggest fears. Like I honestly can't even look at pictures of black holes without getting the shudders, the shivers, and sometimes full-blown, I don't know what the word is. I've had panic attacks before, so not a full-blown panic attack, but the kind of thing where you see something that triggers a specific fear and you just kind of freeze. I think it's freeze response, like I become a deer in headlights kind of thing. So that is a very prominent theme in here, and it's alluded to in different ways. Like there's this one scene where the main character ends up at the bottom of a staircase, and then suddenly the staircase elongates, and based on simple math of how fast the coin dropped before when the staircase was shorter versus how long it took the coin to drop on assumption after the staircase elongated, the staircase is now longer than the span of planet Earth. And so it's like, what are the capacities of how this space can shapeshift and what it's capable of. So things like that, like alluding to a void or like this larger space, time, chaos kind of liminal space again. But like, yeah, so that's really what this is about, and that's the creepy part of it. The not so creepy part is just all the pretentious writing in between, which I'm enjoying as an artist. So like I am enjoying that we're getting different artists and directors and writers, some of them like pulled out of real world situations. Like there's one artist who I love named Carrie Mae Weems who's in here, or the Kiki Smith, I don't remember, but there was an artist in here that I enjoy, and they were like, and Stephen King is mentioned in here, and they're all like interviewed about this house. So that's really cool. I'm really curious as to like what that does in publishing. Does the author need to get consent or like written permission to be able to use these people names in this writing directly? Like asking Stephen King to give feedback on a fake real haunted house video, like paranormal video. That's just really cool. So there's things like that I enjoy, right? Like how do different professionals tackle this idea of seeing evidence of the paranormal, but still trying to frame it within their own capacity or specialization terminology. But no one actually wants to come out and be like, yeah, this could actually be proof that there's spaces and things beyond the human imagination that we're just not able to comprehend, and this could be a haunted house, but no one's gonna outright say it. They're all gonna talk about it in these weird linguistic terms like physics and artistry and chemistry and sociology and all these other things. So like that part again is very interesting, but I'm like, all right, that's been going on for 400 pages. Give me something else. Also, I'm at the point where the family's kind of like out of the house. Enough shit has gone down where they're out of the house, but there's still a good chunk left. So like, do they go back to the house, or is it going to focus on Johnny descending into madness and maybe his house becoming the haunted house? I don't know. There's a lot going on here, but I'm having a great time. It is currently sitting at a 4. I hope it becomes a 5, maybe potentially a 4.5, maybe a 4.75. I don't know. I don't know if that also means that I'm determined that this is not going to be a 5-star, but it's going to be damn close. So that's good, right?
It's a while later. I think it's about time that I talk to you about House of Leaves, because I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to fully give you every single thought that I have about this book. It has been mulling about in the back of my mind for a couple weeks now. And I've never had a book make me feel so conflicted. I both love and hate this book because of just what it did, but also what I wanted it to do. I mean, all right, I talked about it in my wrap-up video about this book, and I struggled. I struggled to touch on everything, and I don't know that I can really touch on everything without this being like a 2-hour long video, but there's so much that happens in here. I don't think it's possible for me to talk about this without going into spoilers, so I'm just gonna jump into spoilers. Saying that this is a horror at the forefront, I don't think is accurate. It's definitely a speculative fiction. It's definitely a haunted house story. It's a story about some serious trauma, and I wasn't expecting this to be so... Forget the unsettling part. It's not even about it being unsettling. It's not even about what the house does, or it's rather about what the house is. So this is the kind of book that I think needs 2 to 3 more rereads to really fully grasp everything that's happening in here. But Johnny, our main character, who is the person who is creating the annotations for this, it's really about his descent into madness and generational trauma. It's about, I think, societal expectations of men and for men to succeed, and the impossibility of holding yourself to perfection. It's about violence, like as a manifestation of what one feels about themselves. Because Johnny hates himself. Johnny does really horrible things. And he makes some really horrible decisions to the people that are around him, which we get in almost a diary-like format within his annotations, because he does not know how to process his feelings. And that in turn comes from his mother and his mother's own psychological damage. Now, we don't know necessarily what kind of facility his mother was in at the end, but we do know that she left him so many letters that were signs of abuse. We don't necessarily have a clear picture as to whether the abuse that was implied actually happened, because everything else in this book is about whether any of this actually happened. If there was ever actually a house, is the house really still standing there? Or is the house really still standing there? Or is it did it disappear? It is insinuated at the end that the house disappears. It's just sad. This book is just so sad. And then Davidson's feelings about perfection and wanting to be this person whose purpose in life is defined by what they provide with the world, but then also knowing that that is this kind of like catch-22, that what they provide the world doesn't necessarily change the world immediately, that it changes the world with time, and that that is not something that they may not bear witness to. The house and the state of the house reflects the mental state of the individual who is within the space. So it kind of like molds to that person's framework of their environment. Each of the characters experiences the house in different ways. Davidson's obsession with the house and with success and with creating this kind of documentation that will do something more for the world than what he was able to do for the child. There's a child in here that is mentioned frequently as Delilah, I think, or Delia, or not Delilah, but it was a photo of a child that Davidson took when he was a photographer during war. And that photo spread like wildfire and became part of history books and things like that. And he hates that he wasn't able to do anything. But photography is what he's good at. Photography is his passion. So it's not that he necessarily doesn't see photography as something that is worthwhile or that is life-changing. It's just that his capacity to change the trajectory of history in that moment is upsetting. I think he thinks that he can do more with discovering the labyrinth that is this house, because then it will become a primary source document for future endeavors and research and so on and so forth. So, leaving his place in society that would have a much stronger remark than a photo of a byproduct of war, which death during war and casualties is something that we already know and see in various forms. It doesn't prevent war. And so that's my interpretation of why Davidson is so gung-ho about documenting this house. I do think that there is quite a bit of a machismo ego that's involved with Davidson. Also so with Johnny. I think with both of them, they are these kind of windows to each other, and that they're both struggling with something similar. We do know a bit more about Johnny's past because in the end of the book we get letters from his mother and stories about his father that tell us things that clearly lead to us understanding a cycle of violence that Johnny has unfortunately been privy to and primed him for this descent into chaos. Finding the manuscript of House of Leaves essentially gives him the permission that he needed to descend further, because he was already on track before he met this book to be self-destructive. He was a tattoo artist in, I think, LA or something like that. And it's not that people who are tattoo artists are automatically self-sabotaging, but that he was a drunk and that, he did drugs and that he just, didn't really have too much plans, ambition in life. He also experienced some things where he's a womanizer and he would take advantage of people. And this manuscript, which he found from Zampano, gives him more external justification to hate himself. Similarly to what the house did for Davidson, to give him an external reason that he could place upon his wanting to basically like pull an Achilles, to basically do something that he defined as greatness and worthy of greatness, at the sacrifice of his family. So both Johnny and Davidson are extremely selfish, and so is the rest of the world. The rest of the world here is also responsible for that selfishness. Because if we look at the criticism that was given to the Davidson record, it's very sexist, and not in a way where it's necessarily not criticizing Davidson for his actions towards his wife, but more so that I think Mark Z Danielewski perfectly understood the assignment when he created this critique of the characters in the Davidson record. Because that's what society does. Like, even now, when actors become fathers, they are less likely to be questioned about fatherhood versus an actress who has become a mother. And so I don't think it's necessarily that the author did anything wrong, but just that it is a reflection of exactly what would happen. And that's the part. That's the part that feeds into why Johnny and Davidson are the way that they are, because of the way that Karen is criticized, her motherhood. Like, just because she is a mother here, her choices and actions of motherhood are criticized more in text, quotations, and like poll text of various articles and reviews and catalogs and so on and so forth, media that are referenced here. I say reference loosely. Even just saying that like throws me through a loop. But she is referenced more. She is criticized more in those references for her motherhood and who she is as a wife, rather than the end of the story when she is responsible for the house disappearing. I do not think it was Davidson who was responsible for the house disappearing. Again, I say that loosely because we don't have confirmation, but being that everything in this book is about insinuation, I feel comfortable in saying that. Her willingness to put aside everything else for what she wanted got rid of the house. And Davidson's willingness to put aside everything that really mattered to him is what kept the house. And I don't think Karen's side of that is talked about enough. Like, we get a couple pages of it, but then there's more time after that that is spent on, is it the Whale Pelican Files, or the writing that is done by Pelafina after. And I think there could have been more there in that aspect. But again, I don't think the author missed anything, because society has a tendency to write from a more patriarchal view, because it's easier to criticize a woman for what she is doing or not doing in predominantly female roles. I totally forgot that at the end of this. I mean, I know that there was evidence at the end of this, but I totally missed the point about that there were year dates on the evidence that didn't line up with Johnny finding the manuscript, and so those have to have existed before Johnny found the manuscript, which is evidence of Zampano. So I'm really grateful that I actually ended up reading this with my partner, because we're still finding things and we're still going to keep going back through this and uncovering new things about this. I highly suggest you reading other things. There's so much more to say here. I feel like I gave so many thoughts in my wrap up, I don't even know what to say here. So Johnny, ultimately, having been responsible for House of Leaves going viral, I don't necessarily know how I feel about that, because it is mentioned a little bit that he was looking for stuff online. But I feel like that's such a leap for me to say, like, oh, that he forgot because he was, again, in his descent where he was losing tracks of time and sleeping. I would have liked to see something that might have insinuated a little bit more that Johnny was doing things in his sleep. That he later, we get a little bit of him, like, finding, like, drawings and scratch out things. But none of that was related to technology. That was all manual, just him, like, losing his phone bill and, like, not being able to get access, like him having no money to be able to go to an internet cafe and things like that. So we could assume that he somehow knew someone or went somewhere and did something where he got computer access, maybe post that, or maybe while he was still coherent enough where he was, like, going to the library and looking for things. In the early 90s, I don't remember there being computers in the library. That's like an early 2000s thing, so it couldn't have been the library. It had to be someone else with a computer. I don't know. Even 1998, computers were still big and bulky and very expensive. But because all of those actions that we saw him, or evidence of him doing while he was asleep, were analog, it didn't sit with me right that he forgot that he may have, like, posted it, unless at some point he mentions that he's in forums or something. But I don't necessarily remember seeing that too. Someone correct me if that is mentioned at any point. Like I said, there is so much that happens in here. I'm gonna need to reread this at least 1 or 2 more times in order to fully grasp everything. And even then, I don't think so, because I was watching some other people's reviews of it and they were mentioning, like, hey, do you remember seeing this check mark on page whatever, because that's really something that happens at the end of the book. And I'm like, nope, don't remember that. So there's lots of Easter eggs and things hidden throughout the book that are really wonderful, and that you just kind of pass by on your first read because you don't know what you should be paying attention to. As far as a mixed media format goes, I absolutely love this. I want every kind of mixed media book that I can possibly get my hands on. House of Leaves is a quintessential ergodic literature. I think that this is kind of the pinnacle for what it means, having been created shortly after that term was coined, for a active reading experience, because there were points in here where I had to flip the book upside down, or like look really closely at the page because something was smaller, or turn it to its side, or kind of just like go like this in order to understand what was going on. That there were some instances in which the shape of the text created an image that was a manifestation of what was happening contextually. I've read a little bit of ergodic literature before, and this has to be my favorite style of reading. I love an active reading experience. So if you're a passive reader and you like having your book easily placed in front of you where you don't have to touch it, this is probably not the best read for you. If if you're looking for books that that just bring you joy, this isn't it. I can't say that this brought me joy. And I typically only reserve 5 stars for books that just put a smile on my face. But this might be an exception. So if you don't enjoy reading academic literature, don't pick this up. And it's kind of like trying to off-put that feeling with Johnny's very messy and sometimes satirical, but mostly depressing trips down memory lane. And I just, those two things together, it's like the juxtaposition between the two, especially on a single page, I think is supposed to be jarring. So if that doesn't sound fun to you, don't pick this up. Another layer to all of this is that we have the editors who are acknowledged as the ones who have bound this book for distribution, who had to have done that after getting all the information and documents and manuscripts from Johnny. or at least have gotten them offline, but most definitely I think it's safe to assume have gotten them from Johnny because we find evidence and images of his writing. But then again, that could have also been posted online. I don't know. Anyway, point is that in the beginning of this book, Zampano, I believe, says that this book is not redistributed, or that this book isn't like widely consumed, that this doesn't become something that people want to finish. But we know that it does because the editors, who are never fully revealed and are only very infrequently mentioned, have done exactly that by giving us this bind-up that we are currently holding. And although we can assume the things that we want to assume about the way that the story ends, we can safely assume that Zampano's wishes did not come to fruition because the story continues to live through us. And that's pretty rad. I have been rambling at my camera for about 30 minutes now, and like I said, I could probably go on talking about this for another 2 hours, but I think this video has to come to an end. If I think of any more things to say, I will be posting, I guess, random thoughts on TikTok. That's it for House of Leaves for now. I post videos whenever creativity strikes. So I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
On we go.
What's it making, Mr. Wonka? Mr. Wonka worked the factory.